Hello and welcome to another episode of the Construction Corner Podcast. I'm Dylan. I'm your host, joined by my blue collar badass because we made it happen after a long time away. What it
Yeah,
feels like
it
again.
is. It's been another month almost, I think, but it's good to be back on, man. Everybody's busy. People get that shit. It's that time of year.
Yeah, man. I this week I left Monday like afternoon, went to Chicago for some big meetings, and then had my flight scheduled to leave at like 9 p.m. Everything got done early, like, and the guys that was with, they had to go back to the office and put out fires. And I'm like, okay, well, all right. I didn't know what we were doing. I just left my calendar open to be here with you guys because I'm here, right? Like I don't need to go and have four other meetings. Like this was dedicated for you and whatever came out of it. Like if we went to golf or dinner or whatever, like I'm here. Um, so that all finished early, went to back to the airport, hopped the earlier flight, made the joke when I was standing in line, like, yeah, it's great to get me on an earlier flight so long as I don't get stranded in Denver. And then there were thunderstorms over Denver that shut the airport down for like a couple hours. So we had to divert and we actually coming into Denver from Chicago, we ended up like as soon as we crossed the Colorado border, ended up going up into Wyoming. And our pilot came on. He's like, "So if you're looking at a flight tracker, we're over Wyoming right now." And it's like, huh, that's not Denver. Uh, but diverted down to like looking out the plane, I could look up out the window and I saw the edge of the thunderstorm that we were going on. So we were
Wow.
between the Rockies and downtown, and we literally skirted just straight down the storm to land in Colorado Springs and then get fuel and wait
Wow.
for the airport to open back up. So it was kind of cool. Like you look out the window and I couldn't really get a good picture of it, but you look like straight up and it's like, yep, I can see a sliver of blue sky and we're just edging the storm.
That's pretty neat. So you had to go then from Colorado Springs back to Denver?
Yeah, it's like a 20-minute flight.
Okay.
It took us as long to taxi as it did to fly.
I was gonna say, it's Colorado Springs a dinky little regional?
Uh Kind of sort of. So it's the military bit, it's the Air Force base there.
Okay.
So I mean they land C-130s and big ass planes on it. Like there were four C-130s and I think there was a C-17 even sitting out there. So the big jet boy.
Well, they got
Uh
some runway space.
they got plenty of runway space, but the guy that came in the who's worked for Southwest and maintenance, he's like, so this is an active taxiway, and on the other side of that is an active military base. So do not leave the plane.
You will be shot on sight.
Didn't say that, but it was basically inferred,
Yeah.
do not leave. I mean, but it just goes to show me like, travel, in the season people for it, it's like, well, what are you gonna do? It's a thunderstorm, and it was rough even just skirting it. Um, like we moved a lot and you couldn't even see the like part of downtown Denver. It was so black as
Wow.
we flew across. So it glad we didn't have to fly through that.
Yeah, no shit. It's been crazy weather out here too, man. It's been really, really hot and humid. Tuesday night, not that this, rivals getting stuck in an airplane in a thunderstorm, but I was in my hot tub when it came through. All of a sudden, it was like nice blue skies, and then just like somebody flipped a switch. It was dark and just pouring rain. And I rode it out like a trooper, man. I was proud of myself. I didn't get out and run. It lasted for 10, 15 minutes, and then blue skies came back out, and
You're
we
already
just
wet.
that's what I thought, right? Until I see the flash, I'm not running.
Just hope it doesn't hit your hot tub, right?
Yeah, if it does, hopefully it's quick. But then I went golfing this morning, like I was saying, and it was brutal. Like 91 degrees in the shade, 100% humidity, just sticky. It was fun still, it was good to get out there, but it was not the most comfortable weather to be in.
Man, I mean, yeah, we've been hot. Like last week was like 105 and one of my buddies who lives down in LA and he loves the heat in the desert. He was up in Sacramento last week for some meetings and he was like, bro, this is no good, It's like 105. Then he was in Phoenix and it was like 113. He's like, yeah, we didn't go outside, it's otherworldly heat, and we're hot and dry, so it's just like a blast furnace when you go outside versus your, swamp
Right,
when
right.
when you step out there. But um brings up a good point, man, is so the guy that I actually had meetings with in Chicago, meeting with, multi-billion-dollar construction company, was he made that acquaintance through golf. Joined a country club like a year ago. I think he, had done business, adjacently with them for years and that kind of stuff. But really it was getting in and golfing. And actually the two main people who got us the meeting, they just got promoted to vice president of the company, and their gift for becoming VPs and then partners in the firm as well were 4 days at Pebble Beach.
Wow.
That was their gift, is to for their promotion. So golf is as a not golfer, I could hack my way through it, if I needed to. One of those things that I think gets underlooked often for a good way to do business development, and especially at some of the nicer country clubs that are out there, especially in Detroit and in Chicago or the suburbs of Chicago for this guy, and that are out and around. Some of those nicer country clubs are a great way to do business development.
Well, they are, because they're chock full of people who, by and large, are better off, right? They're well-to-do people typically, which there's a lot of business owners, there's a lot of entrepreneurs, and it's kind of like just a mastermind, right? You want to be around people that are of that caliber of where you're trying to get to, or where you're trying to talk, what circles you're trying to talk to, or whatever it is. It's a good place to find those people. There's a lot of assholes, but one of the things I've come to learn, and you mentioned you hacking your way through a round. I am by no means a good golfer, but what I've recognized is most people are shit golfers. Even the guy, it doesn't matter how nice their clubs are, how fancy their clothes are, how many thousands of dollars a month their country club is. Most people suck at golf. And once you learn that, like, then it's just fun. Like, okay, well, none of us are going for our PGA card, right? We all have real lives, we have real projects and real jobs. So once you get past that part, then it can just be a good, it's a good learning experience, and it's good bonding, right? You get, 2 to 4 hours of undivided attention with, 1 to 3 other people.
Yeah, you need to be functional, right? Like this is
You can't be effing terrible, but
you can't be needing lawn maintenance after you're done, like that's probably the big thing, right? Like you got to be functional, you got to know how to swing, etiquette, right? All the basics, and not completely, suck. But once you get past that, to where even if you shoot 90, that's fine. Um, you just you can't hold anybody up, and you can't completely suck.
well, that's just it. It's the time factor, because it's already going to take a lot of time to golf. Like we've talked about this before. It takes a shit ton of time to play around a golf. So you can't be the guy that is constantly looking for that last, your namesake ball with your initials on it or some shit. Like once that thing gets into the bushes, fucking walk away. They make more every day in China. They are not that expensive. Just leave it and move on, and people respect that, right? And if you're whacking and chopping through, and all of a sudden you're at 6, 7, 8 strokes on one hole, pick the shit up and move on to the next one, man. And no one thinks bad about you. They'll congratulate you, like, hey, I'm glad we're not waiting for another 15 minutes while dipshit here refuses to throw in the towel and has to get his own ball into the cup.
Yeah, and even one of the guys was like, yeah, I took a client out, and he landed in the rough behind a tree. He's like, man, this doesn't look good. Kicks it 15 feet out in the fairway. Yeah, that looks real good.
There's a lot of that too, man. it depends on what you're doing. I go golfing with my brother-in-law once in a while. I golfed with him on his league last year, and it was real eye-opening. Like, I'm of the mindset where if I'm within, 3, 4 feet of the cup, like I'm picking that shit up most days. I did that with them and they were like, bro, we only let you pick it up if it's within your grip distance away. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me, right? They weren't kidding. They were like appalled. I'm like, okay, when in Rome, I'll putt this one out.
Yeah, that's not a gimme. It's like, am I on the green? Is that a gimme?
Right, right. I can see the hole. We're good. Let's go. Next one.
Uh,
What
yeah,
else is
man.
going on, man?
Um, Frankly, I'm in like this weird. I don't know if it's a new stage in life or new enlightenment or whatever you want to call it, but I have been in this marketing group for like a year, and in there it's so well run. The guy who does it is super detailed. His depth of knowledge is high, and it's like hard to take it in. And he's gotten all these questions over the year that I've been in it. And so every Thursday there's like a 2 to 4 hour call on marketing, psychology, mindset, like how to do all this stuff, how to sell things and all that, right? In marketing. He also does another like 2 to 3 hour call with a higher level group. And then another point in the week he does, like they call him fast feedback, where he's sitting and like restructuring and rewriting all these people's like offers and all their sales letters and all this stuff live, and it kicks everyone's ass. Like the dude is phenomenal. But in that, like the question becomes like, man, it's so overwhelming. Like I'm trying to like figure out how to use this stuff and get to an outcome, right? And everybody's so outcome driven and like, okay, I'm going to read this book, right? Like I got, Tribes by Seth Godin here, or I got a bunch of Seth Godin books, or, like Donald Miller stuff and how to grow your small business, or, marketing made simple or whatever, right? You're looking for an outcome. Like, okay, I'm looking for a thing to do that to use immediately in my business. And while that's all well and good, it creates like tiredness basically, and you trying to always search and find something, and you're doing that consciously. Like, what do I need to get out of this book? Versus when you flip that paradigm to like, I just want to read this because it's interesting, right? Like I'm reading, if I read a biography or anything like that that I have here on the shelf, like I'm not learning, or I'm not reading that to get anything out of it necessarily, other than my own like enjoyment and to learn, right? Like I'm learning just for the sake of it. And when you flip that consciously, you never have, like, you're not wasting energy on trying to find something to fix something, right? Like you'll have ideas that'll flow to you in the learning process, but you're never trying to just like, oh, I need to read this, sales book to figure out how to sell more shit.
Right.
And then so when you go and you flip all of your frame of reference, right? Like whether you read Five Rings or all these other books that are out there, or that we recommended, or you just listen to a ton of podcasts, or you listen to everybody. And some of that, I refrain from, and listening to everybody, like figure out who you need to listen to and then just listen to a shit ton of them. But in that, you then, it's some of this is having faith in your subconscious and who you are as a person to allow you to then execute when the moment strikes, right? When you sit down to write that sales letter, to write that marketing material, to write that standard operating procedure, to write that thing, or to give that presentation. Now, most of you do need to practice speaking for sure. Like I've mentioned this before, most of you are really bad at it. So you do need to practice and get those reps in. But in the majority of scenarios, like in a client call, in a client conversation, in an update meeting, in a job walk, right? In your normal day-to-day life, right? Outside of a presentation or like high stakes meeting, those you should still prep for and do that consciously as well. But like most of your day-to-day stuff, like you do it because and you can do it well because you've been doing it for so long. And so a lot of the learning and education pieces is learn to learn. And then whenever you need that information, it will come to you. Like you will be able to recall most of that. It might not be perfect and it won't be perfect. in your memorization of it or recall of it, but you'll be able to have those conversations that you wouldn't have had before. And you're not going to be so tired in all of your education and learning that it'll be fun still for you. Like you'll still enjoy like reading and finding new things. And just because you're not going to apply it immediately doesn't mean that you shouldn't do it. And I think we've lost, or we're always trying to have an outcome in our reading and our education when basically, because that's how school's always been, is an outcome driven basis. When you remove that and you just amass this large body of knowledge, learning started to be like fun for me. And now I gotta like find other books and biographies, shit to read. But
Well, I mean, you kind of nailed it with that. When you realize that there's not a test at the end of the game, right? You're not studying for an exam. It becomes more intrinsic. It becomes more of a joyful thing to do, if that's the way to put it. For example, I just spent you actually turned me on to the show, the Sean Ryan podcast. Man, I listened to the Dr. Stephen Greer episode. Now, for those of you who don't know, this show is like goddamn almost 3 hours long, right? It's 2 hours and 45 minutes or something. It's an investment. But it was captivating to the point where I went and watched the guy's newest biography. Well, most of it. You should go check it out. I'm not going to spoil it, but like some of the stuff this dude talks about, Dr. Greer specifically, like it's life-changing shit. But it's just adding to that knowledge bank, right? And it's how you grow as a person, so that when you are in those situations, the bullshit that comes seeping out is not just bullshit, right? You're pulling back on memories, you're pulling back on little tidbits and bits and bytes of data that you've stored over the years that, you know, your head, your brain can then process in an effective manner. But until you recognize that you're able to do that, then I think that's why most people don't read, right? Lots of people don't ever read a book after high school because it's still that mentality of, well, this is work. This is, you know, I'm not taking any more exams. I'm done with school. I don't have to do this shit. And that's just the wrong way to look at it.
so as an example, in the presentation that we had, which really ended up just being more of a conversation with the client, their project managers, we did as a lunch and learn, came in, didn't like really present anything, just had an open dialogue and discussion. And because of like myself and the other guys that I was presenting with, because of our body of knowledge, we can easily have these conversations, right? Like I can easily answer their questions. And so one project manager was having questions on some of his projects as it related to lighting, electrical, all this stuff. And, you know, he got to talking about it. And I remembered when we went around the room, what types of projects he was doing. And I'm like, so are you referring to like clean rooms and doing clean room stuff? Well, here's the like three things that you need to know when it comes to clean rooms. Here's how, you know, lighting in particular affects everything in those rooms. Here's the other things you need to know about like sealing them and pressures and everything else. I haven't touched a clean room in a decade. Like, but I can pull all of that knowledge and experience, and I've walked through them. I've been in them. I've cracked ceilings in them, you know, like all some of the stuff you shouldn't do. But you, like I've done those things and can have that conversation from experience, and then also from just a huge depth of knowledge in, you know, designing these spaces, walking through them, having the, you know, conversations with plan owners, like all that kind of stuff that these guys that we were talking to, I mean, they have experience, they just don't have it from the design side.
Well, and that's why you're successful, right? That's why they're going to end up signing with you, because you can bring that missing element. And that's what people look for, because we can't all do everything. And that's a good thing to learn early on in your career, that you're never going to have everything to everyone. That's why you work in teams. That's why we, you know, have teams. Otherwise, everyone would be out there as, you know, lone wolf badasses and doing everything. It's not possible. So if you can fill that void for somebody, that's business 101 right there.
And the thing too, and we went in with this attitude as well, is, again, very large company. These project managers make decisions for the company, for their projects. They make buying decisions, they get rewarded for it. But in that is they don't know, right? They don't know everything in what's going on. Some of these guys, they're like interns in the room, and some of them ask pretty good questions. And so some of them are just new. And we were there to educate more than anything. Like, hey, here's how electrical design works, and I start going down like, making fun of my architects like normal. And well, like especially in the lighting world for electrical, right? Like we went down the VE path, right? Power systems don't get VE'd, fire alarm, like nothing gets VE'd except lighting. It's the only thing that gets VE'd from electrical scope, even in low voltage, right? Like, oh, do you not want internet? Oh no, okay. Like
It's because lights are lights, right? In the world, in the eyes of a builder and most owners, if it's fucking bright enough, it's fine. I,
yeah,
I
yeah.
had this argument today on the way home from golfing with my right hand man at the office about our architect, and he's sticking his nose into things again, and he's complaining that we're not putting these fancy pants linear blah blah blahs in the lobby of this facility we're building. And I just said, who the fuck cares? The owner doesn't care. The patrons don't care. I sure as hell don't care. As long as we can hit the foot candle level of light that this dude needs to operate, nobody's looking at the damn fixture. Maybe I'm a
Well,
little
that
one-sided.
yeah. So, well, and that's just like that's what I told these guys, and again, some of them were too young to get the joke. All the old guys got it. Um, you know, it's like because we were on the second floor and we could see all the lobby lights, and they had these nice, 6-inch cylindrical, 3-foot pendants at all the different heights and the metal caps on top and bottom. And it's like those are expensive fixtures, right? They're
Yeah.
probably a couple $1,000. And then like I'm like, yeah. So as you look over here outside the right side of the airplane, you can see these lights that, nobody gives a shit about except for maybe the owner and the architect or the interior designer. And you guys just got to figure out how to put these in, like as an electrical engineer, I would put cans and troffers in and call it a day. But that's not how this works. So for the rest of the building, we'll get that done and taken care of. And then from a schedule standpoint, like it's not me or any of the engineers that are holding you up. It is the owner and or architect and making a decision as to what aesthetic look and feel they want out of the lobby and your entrance spaces. The rest of the building is taken care of. They don't make those choices. And here we are. Unless you're in New York or, Crook County. And yes, I said that intentionally. In Chicagoland, like those are the two jurisdictions that the architects do a ton of stuff. They don't really let engineers do anything and whatever. But those are like the two jurisdictions where architects are going to hold up the project. They're doing way more scope than they should, and they aren't letting engineers just be an engineer. Like architects in New York are putting receptacle placements. It's like, are you serious? Like you have better things to do, like figuring out how to get out of this place before it catches on fire. Like that's your job. I digress.
No, I could talk about that shit all day long, man. I don't have like a general distaste for architects. I truly don't. But you got to know your limits, and you got to know your audience, and you got to know what you're being paid to design, right? A building in southeastern Michigan, a light industrial building does not need to have the artistic flair of a building in downtown Chicago that's going to house, some financial company or some shit like that. It's different sides of the spectrum. You have to know your sandbox and that you're playing in, and that's when I will lose my mind, is when these guys it just stymies progress. It costs people money and time, and it just kills me.
Yeah. And I mean, like to a point, I get it. Right. But on the other side of it, much like you're talking about, especially for the type of projects you're talking about, light industrial storage facility, nobody gives a shit what the lobby looks like. Can they see the little kiosk to put their credit card in? Yes. Good. Okay. Got it. Move on. Uh, and then for light industrial, it depends. Like, what are they bringing clients through? Is just a workspace and it's a lobby because it's a lobby, you know, like you go in and you got two hallways and one goes left, one goes right, you know, like what do you know, is there actual reception here or like what are we doing? And it goes down to, you know, you take a $20 million building and then you're worried about $10,000 worth of fixtures. It's like, dude, just issue well, you don't know what shit costs, but give me an allowance number for the the lobby and we'll give you another 6 months to figure out what fixture you want to put in here. You know, we can deal with this after bid day to, you know, figure that out. If you're that stuck on it and you're going to delay this 2 weeks on a fixture choice, get out of here, you know, like that
Well,
delays.
that's exactly it, right? And that they don't know what the hell this shit costs usually. So fine, you want to put 50 grand in lighting upgrades, we can work with that all day long. And then like you said, we can filter those decisions back to the architect or the designer when the time is appropriate. Don't hold me up on the front end of a project because you're stomping your feet because my design build electrician included fixtures that you don't agree with on your grand vision in your head, right? Let's get past that. We'll deal with it later.
And it's for a 2,000 square foot lobby, you know, it ain't for the 200,000 square feet behind it, you know, like, and that's again, it's like scope of decisions. And again, in your world, like you get a lot more leeway in that, right? To, hey, can we just do a budget number for this and like move on? Um, and to have those conversations, you know, where you control the projects in like the traditional design bid build world, like that had to be done. Like there's
Oh
no
yeah.
way to not do that and not figure it out and not do it as soon as possible. And this is even like with owners and architects in well, and really the interiors folks, because they don't work on a project till fucking CDs. But like you end up, I mean, it wrecks our world as the electrical guys because and interiors really only affects architecture and then electrical. That's about it. You know, it doesn't really mess with the mechanical guys. It doesn't mess with the plumbing guys. It messes with like, oh, you made this room black. Why? You know, like, oh, we need more floor boxes for all this, you know, systems furniture that you're going to put in. Well, okay, let me go talk to the structural guy and make sure we can do this. I'm gonna Swiss cheese this floor. All right, you know, like that's where it starts to like go when you start to do these like furniture systems and everything's got power in them, you know, because it doesn't just magically appear because we don't have those boxes yet. And so, you know, from that standpoint, like you got to wire all this stuff. Like you've got to get it from somewhere, from a panel to that, and you're going to put it in the middle of a floor. And yeah, no shit, you don't want raceway on the ceiling and you don't want an umbilical from the ceiling or like, you know. So okay, we're doing floor boxes and we're coming up from the floor below to do this. You know, we got two penetrations if you want the breaker on the same floor, you know. Like those are all the thought processes that go into this that, you know, you as the GC have to go through, that the electrician has to go through, that the, you know, concrete guys got to go through to make sure that we can do all the penetrations and stack out their rebar. And, you know, it's all the stuff that nobody thinks about until, you know, oh shit, what do you mean we don't have a floor box?
Yeah, and it goes both ways because I also have had arguments with my electricians before who, yes, it's design build and they get a lot of leeway on their own design. But then when I get into the middle of a construction project and I walk into the conference room that's supposed to hold, 200 people, and I say, huh, where are the floor boxes going? And they look at me like it's not on the drawings. Like, okay, guys, now we have a problem, right? You, Mr. Electrician, were granted the ability to design this project and to set up the budgets. What in the flying fuck do you mean there's not a floor box or 10 of them in a conference room? Like that's pretty normal and standard. It's not anything outlandish, right? We don't have the 0 point energy available quite yet where we can just tie into all these electrons moving around and power our shit. So we go both ways, right? It's got to be functional. That's if I were to ever be an architect, first of all, I would hope you would shoot me first. But if I were, I would be a functional architect, right? The stuff has to work for the end user. Outside of that, I get the fluffy, I get it. You got to have it look nice. It's got to be comfortable. It's got all these things. However, there's a lot that could just be battleship gray when people spend too much time, painting it fuchsia.
And again, it goes back to, right, you're doing light industrial projects, ANSI 67 is good color, like it works. And then, or white, or, pick a neutral tone, right? Like it's fine. Gray's good. And you just move on. And again, if somebody wants to come back through and do it or whatever, right? Paint's fairly cheap, in the scheme of things for those projects to do it. And again, it goes to, I mean, and this is it, it's always been interesting to me, right? The balance between like the design piece and then, the installation part of it. And when you really combine those two, where you have that engineer record on it, and then with all the design bid build stuff where we got hammered if we didn't have anything in the drawings, and then all the ingenuity and creativity that come with a design build contractor to be able to merge those two. I mean, that's where you really get the synergies, because you bring all the best design shit is on the drawings to that point, like everything is thought of. And then it's like, and then the contractor can execute it, all the fab team can execute with their design build stuff. And so you get all the best of both worlds, because often it's exactly what you talked about. It's not on the drawings. Well, you're responsible for the drawings. You're still in contractor world, and engineers separate from contractor, and you're not thinking of them as you are both.
Yeah, that's just it. That's why true design build works, right? It's a cohesive team of all of the different disciplines that need to be involved, and none of them that don't. That's why it works. That's design build 101 right there. You folks heard it for free.
Yeah. Well, and I've been a big fan of it for a long time, but doing it right's the hard part. And last thing that I'll mention and talk about, as I'm going and getting more art or engineering licenses for different states as projects come up, and we're going after a lot more now, is, man, the engineering discipline and architecture discipline, it has a big moat around it, right? If you want to be a contractor, sure, you got to take some tests, you got to sit through some courses, but it's not like unsurmountable to go and get your contractor's license. And that's in like the, Republic of California here, where they make it ungodly to get anything done. So, I'm sure in Michigan, you pay a fee and sign your name and they give you a license, they're thereabouts.
Well, ironically, Michigan is one of the few states that actually has no commercial builder's license, period. Try that on for size.
There you go. So, well, yeah, it's all the easier for payoffs to happen in Detroit. um, I digress. So for in construction, right, to be a contractor, it's not like ungodly to go and get any of this stuff. To be an architect, engineer, right, and we're the only disciplines that have to sign and seal anything in like any discipline, right? Like automotive doesn't have to do anything. Like I've talked about this before. Like most every other industry, you don't have to sign and seal drawing. Nobody is responsible for anything when it comes down to it. So in architecture and engineering, you're going to school for 4 or 5 years, you're working for 4 or 5 years, you're taking tests for this. Architects take 5 or 7 tests now for them to get licensed. Engineers, we just have our 2, one at graduation, one after 4 years. Then you have to have, for engineering, you have to have 5 engineers recommend you, and then all those referrals and stuff follow you. So I bring this up and walking you through this mainly to note that because there is a moat around it, and then there's still a push to send people to school for doctor, engineer, not so much lawyers, but we still churn those guys out. So you have these professional degrees, right? CPA, doctor, lawyer, engineer, architect. And with that turnout, you've still got the professional side of it, but you don't have as many going into getting their PEs. Like out of my class of 50 electrical engineers, there were 2 of us that are, maybe 3 that are PEs out of it, that are doing anything. One works in a steel plant, one works in a pulp mill, and then me, right? Like that's it. So one out of 50 electrical engineers is licensed in doing stuff, right?
I
And
wouldn't have guessed
so,
that.
well, again, that all in electrical engineering, that includes all the guys that went and just they're plant engineers, right? They're working at a manufacturing facility doing whatever. They're doing electronics and communications. They're working at Texas Instruments on, microchip sets. They're working in, all these various industries, right? The amount of people that go into power systems specifically and, building engineering is like, again, 2%. So then you have, I mean, there's more mechanical guys, but again, it's very small. And then it's the field isn't necessarily, it's growing somewhat, but I I don't know what the numbers are, right? They're not super transparent and how many folks are retiring at the top end and then how many we come in. But my guess is that the industry is shrinking of licensed professionals. So it creates that moat around it. And you mentioned like it going away. I don't foresee that because of how entrenched the permit office is and their fee structure, how entrenched signing and sealing stuff is, how nobody wants to take responsibility for anything, and therefore having somebody sign off on drawings. I don't think that's ever going to go away because of the inherent risk and responsibility that we end up taking on these projects. That I don't I don't see how you'd replace that without very drastic overhaul of the entire like system to put a building together and a building project. It's just a unique observation. I don't have a solution for it, but it goes to show like how valuable like those professional degrees are. So again, it's going to be a job security piece for the next generation, much like everything else, working with your hands, having a skill is one of those, having your engineering credentials and your seal, because, like you can't go and get one without 10 years of investment, in it.
Right. Right.
So
Interesting points, man.
it's, I don't know, man, like things are going good. Like on the whole, we're still moving and shaking. We're getting meetings with very large companies that want to speed up their production, speed up how they do things, faster to market. They want to integrate more of their design and everything else that they do. They've got architects in house, process people in house, structural in house, civil in house. They just, and again, they're doing billions of dollars of projects. So when you start to integrate the full team together, it's just amazing what these guys can do. And that leads to other opportunities with other clients and just speed to market, man.
That's what it's all about, man. That's good stuff. I wish you the best in that, and I'm sure we'll get to hear about some more details here coming up on future shows.
Yeah, to a point. Some of this got to keep some of the secrets behind
Gotta stay outside of that NDA, but I get it.
closed doors. But yeah, man. Outside of that, any last words on your part for today's show?
No, man. Go check out our YouTube site, everybody. It is growing slowly but surely. And again, if you want to ask us some questions to put on the show, or you have some guests that you want to see on the show, or if you have the stones yourself to come on the show, get in touch with one of us. We're kind of remodifying the studio here at HQ2 so that we're going to start doing some actual live in-person interviews. So if you're in the Southeast Michigan area and you want to actually get on the hot seat, reach out and we'll make it happen.
Other than that, guys, thank you so much for listening. Thanks for tuning in to yet another episode of the Construction Corner podcast. And until next time.